Alyssa Hollywood, and I am the coordinator in the Office of Student Transition Programs and one of the cohort leaders within the Center for Student Involvement and Leadership. Welcome to our next segment on Adulting 101, Cooking on a Budget. We are all currently stuck in the middle of this quarantine with no end in sight. I'm sure, like myself, we are all cooking every meal at home and trying to make our grocery list last. Very easy at home to just snack and snack and snack on anything that you have. Well, I'm gonna hopefully try and give you some tips and tricks that I use to help you stay within your budget and cook meals that are not boring and that you and your family may actually enjoy. What makes me a culinary expert? I'm in no way near being a culinary expert. I am just a person who cooks a lot at home in order to save on money because eating out for every meal is very expensive. Yes, it is fun to indulge and treat yourself. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I definitely love to, but I try to be very strategic to stay within my budget and not throw out any food that goes bad because I didn't have a chance to cook it, or try to throw out leftovers. I'm a big fan of leftovers. I know not everyone is, but that helps me stay with my budget. Currently, I would say I'm able to cook for two for almost every meal. Definitely lunch and dinner, sometimes breakfast. I don't always eat breakfast, but I typically don't go over $100 grocery shopping for two. Again, that all depends on how big your household is. This is where I'm coming in to try to give you some of those tips and tricks. So before we get started into how to plan for your grocery shopping trip and meal prepping, I just want to talk about some essential items I feel like it's important for everyone to have in their kitchen. We're first going to talk about different grocery items I feel it's important, and then we're going to talk about some utensils, cookware, and bakeware that is important to have. These essential items are things that you may not think about needing. They tend to be items that you use in your daily cooking, and that's why it's important to always have it in your kitchen. I want to start off with olive oil and vegetable oil, salt and pepper, ketchup, mustard, soy sauce, balsamic vinegar, any sort of broth, so chicken broth, beef broth, vegetable broth, fish broth. I personally don't have the big containers of the broth. I use the cubes that you can just add to water. Sugar, baking powder, and baking soda, two very different, so it's always important to make sure you have both or you're checking your recipes to ensure which one you're gonna need. Vanilla or vanilla extract is garlic, whether that's garlic cloves or minced garlic. Onion is always important to have for any basic recipe. Rice and pasta, I find it's always important to have some in your kitchen. Lemon, whether that's lemon juice in the plastic container or fresh lemon. Butter goes for milk. You can get regular dairy milk or almond, soy, coconut. I find it's important to have eggs in your fridge. I always feel it's nice to have some bread on hand. I like to make sure that my pantry is stocked up, so I always like to have canned spaghetti sauce. I always like to make sure that I have diced tomatoes, have some canned vegetables and beans, and it's really important to have spices. I have a little box that I keep all my spices in. To have some fresh herbs on hand, vinegar, cheese, or vegan cheese, like tomato paste. You can get it. It's very difficult to get it in the can because you don't always need to use a whole can of it for your recipe. So you can buy a tube of it. Now, there are a lot of different items that you may always have in your kitchen, so don't feel like if I didn't cover that in my essential list, doesn't mean it's not essential to you. These are just things that I always like to have on hand because if I can't think of something to make for dinner, I can look in my pantry and find something to make. Cookware, bakeware, utensils that I feel are important. Again, you don't have to have all of these, but these are some things that I feel are necessary to cook at home. So some sort of large pot, saucepan, some non-stick pans, baking sheets, mixing bowls. I prefer wooden spoons, knives, a whisk, spatula, cutting boards, measuring spoon and measuring cups, tongs, and a ladle. These I feel are very basic. You can get them at any store. You can get them at Target, your grocery store. Now we're going to be talking about how to plan for your grocery shopping trip. You might think it's just as simple as creating your grocery list and going to the store. And for some people that might work out great. For me, I found that I was wasting a lot of food. I wasn't using a lot of the produce that I was buying and it was just going to waste. Or I would make something, I wouldn't eat it, the rest of it, and then I would just have to throw it away. So I really worked on creating a system that works for myself, and that doesn't mean that it has to work for you, or if it doesn't work for you, then that's not great. But this is what helps me, making sure that I'm staying, one, within my budget, and two, not wasting food and throwing it away. Now, I'll write down the days of the week and lunch and dinner. Like I said before, I typically don't eat a lot of breakfast, and if I do, it's just toast and apples. So I write that down later on, but I write down the days of the week and lunch and dinner, and I start to think about what I'm gonna want for the week. And I do like to plan meals that will make multiple meals that will feed my household, which is 2 people. So I am a fan of leftovers. I acknowledge and understand that not a lot of people are, but like I said before, you have to figure out what's gonna work best for you. So like I said, for lunch, I'm just cooking for myself. So I'll try to find something that will last me 2 or 3 days, and then I'll find something else that will last the other 2 or 3 days to get me through the week. For dinner, I try not to go more than 2 nights. Typically, we'll eat the same thing a couple days in a row, but you can also alternate. Eat the same thing Monday, Wednesday, and then another thing Tuesday, Thursday, so that you're not getting sick and tired of it. I then try to think about different items that I'm gonna need outside of those regular meals. So thinking about milk, snack, things that you've run out of from your essential list, paper towels, toilet paper, soap. So thinking about everything throughout your whole household. I find my recipes on Pinterest, so I'll start to think about what I may want, or if I know that I need to buy ground beef, I'll look at ground beef recipes, or if I have chicken, I'll think about search for chicken recipes and try to figure it out that way. So it's very important to make sure that you're checking your fridge so you're not overbuying and purchasing something that you already have. For me, I try to plan out 1 week at a time. Again, that's preventing me from throwing out food and wasting it. I plan 1 week at a time. When I get to the grocery store, I try to stick with my list. I do walk through all the items to make sure if there was something that I forgot or I see it and I want to grab. And I don't always just stick to the list. I may add, but I try to limit those purchases. In addition to planning out your grocery shopping trip and planning out your meals, meal prepping is a way to ensure that you're saving money or sticking within your budget, but then also not wasting any food. Meal prepping is important because it will prevent you from wasting food and groceries going bad and sticking within your budget. Now I'd like to take the chance to share some recipes that are not only quick and easy, but taste good. They are meals that can be done very quick, will hopefully give you some inspiration of something to try, or even find something very similar online. Here we're making a 1-pot pasta dish. In a pan, you're going to heat up some olive oil, and in the meantime, you're going to chop up 1/2 onion and however much garlic you'd like. I used 1 large clove, but you can do as much as you'd like. You're gonna cook that for about 2 to 3 minutes until the onion becomes translucent and the garlic becomes fragrant. Then you're gonna add 1 can of diced tomatoes, 2 cups of chicken broth, and 1 tablespoon of basil. You're gonna let that cook for a moment, and then you're gonna add 1/2 container of your choice of pasta. So it's going to be about 8 ounces, and you can use whatever type of pasta you'd like. You're going to let that cook for a little bit until you're able to push all of the noodles down into the pan. And you're just going to keep checking on it and stirring it. You're going to cook it for about 6 to 8 minutes until it's the right texture and consistency that you like. Then you're going to serve it up and enjoy. These dishes are my favorite because it's not a lot of dishes and it tastes delicious. Preparing a ground beef, sauteed vegetable, and rice lunch bowl. In a small pot, I have started with 1 1/3 cups of water, 1/2 cup of dried rice, and a dash of olive oil. In a small pan, I have added some olive oil, sliced up peppers and onions. I've topped it off with a little bit more olive oil and put the lid on to help saute the vegetables a little bit quicker. I'm going to be adding some seasonings, salt, pepper, and additionally garlic powder, onion powder, and ginger to help make it taste great. I'm going to be adding some soy sauce to the vegetables and the ground beef later on. I don't measure, I just kind of do it depending on how I feel, a couple little shakes. It all depends on what flavor you would like. So I've just been checking the vegetables and the rice. You'll want to cook the rice so that it boils. Once it boils, you will turn the heat down to about low medium heat and cover the lid. You can see me here just continuing to stir the vegetables so that they have the right consistency that I'd like. So the rice still has a long way to go. So once the vegetables were done, I put them in a separate bowl and added the ground beef to the same pan. You didn't need to cook it at all. Before I add any seasoning, I was just draining the ground beef of any excess oils or fats that came out during the cooking process. And now I'm gonna season the beef. I just keep checking the rice to make sure that it's getting the right consistency that is needed. I'm adding a splash or so of soy sauce and a little bit of teriyaki sauce. Again, it all depends on how you feel. I do kind of like a quick 2 or 3 flick of the wrist. It looks like the ground beef is done and the rice is almost there as well. Now I'm going to put all of the food in my Tupperware that I will be using. I don't like to add more dishes than what I need. I also forgot to add that it's important to do your dishes while you're cooking so that once you're done eating, you don't have a lot of dishes to do. I'd like to use a measuring cup to measure out my rice till I'm not eating too much of the rice, and then it just helps with plating. And this was a couple days after when I was heating it up again on the stove. It was great.